I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Good evening, everybody. You are watching the Cryptid podcast, and as always, I am your humble host, Daniel. And tonight, you guys, I've got an extraordinary guest on with us tonight. I have Ernie on, and before he gets on here, let me tell you a little bit from what I know about his encounter. I know that it happened around the Granville Reservoir. I know it happened in the late 80s. And I know a couple other tidbits about this story, but I am not going to divulge that. I'm going to let Ernie tell you this absolutely extraordinary encounter that he had with Bigfoot. So, but before we bring him on, I just want to say thank you so much for every single one of you out there that have taken time out of your busy day to watch a minute, 10 minutes, the whole episode. Thank you for your subscriptions. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your views. Thank you for your comments and any sharing that you've done. I truly appreciate it. Without you guys taking the time out of your day to check out what I'm putting out there for you and content wise, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing today. I absolutely love doing this. And again, I owe it all to you guys that take the time out of your busy days to just check out the show and see what exciting stories I have on there. Now, as you can see, I got a little ticker going across the bottom of the screen here. If anybody out there has had an encounter and would like to come on the show, please email me at thecryptidpodcast72 at gmail.com. Again, it's thecryptidpodcast72 at gmail.com. And if you still want to tell me your story, but you don't want to come on the show, that's fine too. I'll safeguard that story. If you want me to read it, I'll accommodate you there as well. But you guys, I can't wait to get Ernie on here. So let's just jump in and get Ernie on the show. Ernie.
Hey,
how are you doing,
Dan?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show.
You're welcome.
We have a mutual friend. I think we have a few mutual friends.
Yes.
And yeah, I've had one in particular start telling me your story, and he got to one part, and I'm like, stop. Don't want to hear anymore, because just the little tidbit that he gave me blew my mind. So, you guys, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to mute my mic. I'm going to be listening to his story. I'm going to be taking notes, and I'm going to let Mr. Ernie right here jump on in and tell his story.
Well, if you want to jump in anytime you want, Dan, and ask a question, you can do that. You know,
I
give me a
will.
little bit of you give me a little bit of a breather.
Okay.
But I'm going to start off with telling people that a lot of times people ask me for a bio or something like that, and I really don't like to do that, because I'd rather have you look at me as a person. You know, when you go to a lot of the conventions and everything, you might have to pay a little bit extra money for a meet and greet or something like that. I'm not really into that. Again, I'd like to be just looked at as a normal person. My past should not have anything to do with what I so much as what I seen. You know, I don't want to take it away from anything from any of the other eyewitnesses that are out there. That's why I decided I would do this. I kept this quiet for roughly 37 years or so, you know, and you'll understand why in a little while here. I'm all about the eyewitnesses. So if you do have an encounter, please call Dan up, or, you know, talk to somebody about that. And don't worry about, you know, you don't have a PhD or anything else behind your name. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. You see what you're seeing. Well, with that being said, I'm going to get into the story here. The area that I was in, I hunted frequently when I didn't feel like traveling, you know, out of state or to another part of the state of Massachusetts to hunt. And I usually hunted with my brother. I grew up hunting with my father, my great uncle, and a few of the other people. We called it a little hunting party. Excuse me. That particular day, that area, um, I would use topographical maps. Back in the day, you could go to a bookstore and you could ask for any topographical map, any area that you wanted. They go in the back, get it, bring it out, And you would take that with you backpacking into scout an area, so that you could put down their deer runs on there. You could put down any type of bedding areas that you're noticing, water sources, food sources. Maybe they're scraping, maybe they're rubbing the surrounding area, so that you can really get a good idea of when they're coming through and what type of deer is coming through. Is it a doe? Is it a buck? Things like that. Okay. But that particular morning, it was really close to the last day, if not the last day of hunting season in the state of Massachusetts. And we do, for everybody out there, we do have to use a shotgun. Okay. You can use a black powder during black powder season, but you cannot use a rifle. So other states are like that too. They have certain areas you can do that. But I did my homework and I decided that what I was going to do was come in on the opposite side of, it's called Drake Mountain, in the Cobble Mountain area next to the Granville Reservoir. There's Cobble Mountain Reservoir, Granville Reservoir, and then you have like a Wildcat Mountain, and I was Drake Mountain. And I had deemed that because of the weather reports that the wind would be coming up over the top of that, and down towards the Granville area and the Cobble Mountain into the Cobble Mountain area. So I chose to circumnavigate that and go up from that side. I didn't want the wind to be anything to be smelling me. I wanted the wind to be in my face. And it was crispy out that morning too. There was no snow on the ground, but there was like frost. It was sporadic. It was here and there. The leaves are crunchy. The trail that I chose to go in later on in life, I learned that was called Uncleman's Path. It's named after an Indian that came up from the colonial villages during the colonial time with the tax collector, and he would bring him to all the villages all the way up through, up into Pittsfield and places like that, and then bring the guy back. But I was going to take that path up in there, and at about 3/4 of the way up that mountain, there was an outcropping of boulders, just 3 boulders. They're quite huge. I used to reference them as being Stonehenge, okay, because we were so close to American Stonehenge anyways, which is in the state of New Hampshire. But I knew from scouting the area that the deer were going to be bedded down right there in that area. Those boulders, you could actually camp between those boulders. It was beautiful. And as I got right up to it with the wind still in my face, I heard the deer get up. And it's, if you've never heard that before, to the people out there who do hunt, it's a distinct sound when a deer's laying down and it jumps up onto all fours. And that's what they did. I couldn't quite tell how many. I was assuming there was 3, maybe 4 of them. They got up and they started, they proceeded to go directly away from me over the top of the ridge. They're going in that direction. The path that I was on actually hooked a little bit to the left, and then it went up to the right, and it paralleled the top of that ridge. So I figured at that point that if I was going to get a harvest, what I needed to do is I needed to get out in front of these deer. On a back note, on looking back on what had happened that morning, I could hear what I thought was another deer on the other side of them that was paralleling them while I was paralleling their left side. They couldn't see me, but I would imagine they couldn't smell me, but I would imagine that they definitely could probably hear me. So I decided what I was going to do is when they moved, I would move. But when I moved, I was going to do like a 2-step. I was going to go toe heel, sound like a 4-legged animal instead of a 2-legged animal, because that might alert them that perhaps I was, the human was trying to catch up to them. They wouldn't be so intimidated by a 4-legged animal, particularly if I was trying to be quiet. This was just in case they heard me. Well, that was working just fine, as I knew that probably after I passed those boulders, I would say it's probably that distance from them boulders to the top where Drake Brook actually comes out of the mountain. There is probably maybe 300-400 yards anyways. And if I traveled straight across that top of that ridge and down the other side, there was apple orchards down on that side. There's apple orchards behind me, water sources. I had it all going on up there. If anybody came in from the Connecticut side, they'd be pushing deer, and the deer would come up over the top of that mountain. That's why I picked that area. So I managed to get out in front of them. And right on the top there of the mountain, that path that goes straight, there's also part of that path that actually hooks to the right. They call it a dog leg, all right? And it goes back, kind of back down the same way that I took, not quite parallel to that, just a little bit off, but down the other side of that mountain on that side. In between the path that I was originally on and that dog leg, there was a stone wall. So I had, as I come up to that little bit of a clearing, because it was sort of like a clearing, some very large pine trees, old wood pine trees, but it was spacious in between. I scanned that area. I wanted to make sure that there were no squirrels in there or grouse or turkeys or anything in there that was going to alert those deer to stop them, because they were headed right towards that stone wall. I didn't want them to stop from coming over the stone wall and scatter. I was hoping they would come over that stone wall, and that stone wall was probably about I don't know, about maybe 40, 45 yards from me, right around there, 40, 45 yards or so. So I knew it was an easy shot for me as they would come over the stone wall. And there was browse in there too. There was beech nuts, saplings in there, and acorns, things like that. So I could hear them still stopping every now and then, and they got into that little bit of an area, and I was waiting for them to come over that stone wall. And to my left, right in my 9 o'clock on my peripheral, I picked up movement. So I'm figuring, I need to check that out. But you want to remain cognizant of the deer on the other side of that stone wall. You don't want to lose them in case they start popping over the stone wall or whatever, because basically the last time I'm going to get out there hunting, and I needed a harvest. So that movement caught my attention. So I kind of turned a little bit so that I could see that. And I could also kind of keep an eye on that stone wall area to see what that movement was. And it appeared to be what I thought was a deer. And I just want to push this to people, that your mind is going to play tricks on you. And you have to be really cognizant of what the heck you're doing out there in the woods with a weapon. You don't just want to start shooting and assuming. Don't assume, So I immediately thought that it was a deer laying there, away from the other deer, which probably would have been a buck or something, because it's, the does don't want them to be really around there, from what I've witnessed around them, because they can become combative themselves. So I'm still hearing the deer over there on the other side meandering around, and I'm not going to shoot this thing on the ground anyways, because I was trained or told not to shoot a deer when it's on the ground, particularly if it's sleeping, because I'll get in trouble. They'll be able to tell at the weigh-in station. I don't know if they can or not, but that's what I was told, and I'm not about to push that envelope. So I'm kind of waiting, but I'm still cognizant of those deer on the other side. And it starts scrunching up to the tree, and it's a lot bigger than a deer. It doesn't have the shape of a deer. It more has the shape of what you would think of a bear, a bigger bodied animal. Okay. So now I'm thinking, okay, I got my shotgun on it. I'm thinking, if it's a bear, I don't need it bum rushing me. I don't know if there's cubs around here. I don't know how it got there, but I don't need anything happening there. I don't have a bear permit. And that's when it got up just a little bit more, and it was hugging the tree, had its head around the other side of the tree. And that's when it really had the shape, the silhouette of a man. And I said, oh, it's a guy. And now things are ramping up on the other side of that stone wall. It sounds like there's a little bit more action going on over there than there really should be. And this, I'm going to call him a being for now, stood up. And now I can see that it's probably the biggest man I've ever seen in my life. And I used to fight, and I've seen a lot of big men, And this was absolutely the biggest person I've ever seen in my entire life. Absolutely huge. But he had his head around the other side of the tree, his right arm on the tree on my side. And now I'm really thinking that this was a hunter that was probably laying there sleeping early in the morning, heard the deer coming through, gets up. He's not even cognizant of the I'm over there. I'm kind of scrunched down just a little tiny bit because, like I said, I was a little bit in the open there, and I didn't want them to come over that stone wall and just scatter on that. So I made the decision that what I was going to do is I was going to move up just a little bit. So if they came over that stone wall, I would now be caught in his peripheral because I didn't want to get shot by a shotgun. I didn't need holes in my clothes or even me. So I moved up just a little bit to put myself into that individual's peripheral vision. And that's pretty much when he was totally erect standing against that tree. And I'm still like kind of bewildered on it. And all hell broke loose on the other side of that stone wall at the same time. Once I made that, everything went loose over there. It sounded like something came out of the trees. It sounded like, I'm not talking branches snapping, I'm talking limbs snapping, boulders clacking, not rocks, boulders clacking over on the other side. And that was a little bit concerning with that going on over there. And I'm still remaining cognizant of that individual next to that tree because this has my full attention now, just about those deer on the other side, because I know they got to be coming over. They got to be coming over that stone wall, and he's going to catch up with me and everything's going to be cool here. And that's when he stuck his head around my side of the tree. He had his right foot on my side of the tree, had his right arm wrapped on the tree, I guess for balance or whatever. And he stuck his head around my side of the tree. Now, right in between that, I was looking for something to measure on. How tall is this individual? Is there a little twig sticking out? Is there a piece of bark broken off? Is there a piece of moss? I spotted a piece of moss. I got lucky, piece of moss. So I'm looking at that. I'm going, geez, this guy's absolutely huge. But when he stuck his head around my side of that tree there, he caught me in his peripheral vision. He seen me and he looked over at me. And it was right about there that I was just almost floored right there. He looked back over that stone wall and he snapped his head right back at me. Gave me a look like who are you? What are you? What are you doing here? He couldn't believe that I was standing there. Never mind me not being able to believe that he was standing there too. I'm like, we were both kind of like shocked. And I had my shotgun pointed right at him. And then he swung that left foot into action and broadsided me right there, facing me dead on, broadside, looking directly at me. And I tell everybody, this would have been easy peasy 37, 38 years ago. I could have just said, hey, I just seen a Sasquatch, down at the local bar and got myself a couple of drinks anyways. But what he did next was that kind of wrecked that thought anyways, because he put both his hands in front of him, fingers together, palms facing me, fingers towards the sky, elbows in towards his waist, sock back bent, and pumped it twice. And he looked at me like he was checking me out and like, do I understand? And it didn't seem aggressive to me. I was waiting for an aggressive mood. He was 35, I called it 35 yards away. I've had somebody professionally use advanced Google Earth, and they dropped a pin on where I was standing, where I said I was standing. They dropped a pin on the tree that he was behind, that I said he was behind, and they came up with 38 yards. So that's not too bad. If I was archery, I might have missed that bullseye by a little bit, but I was happy just knowing that I had my distances figured out correctly. But while he was eyeing me and I was eyeing him, and he put his hands out like that, I relaxed a lot more, and I went to about half ready on my shotgun, and he continued walking towards me. And as he walked towards me, he took, and this is for all you people out there that are trying to do research, you might want to research this rather than say you know sign language, because maybe you do know English sign language, maybe you know pig sign language or a little bit of Indian sign language, but this is called ancient language evolution. Okay. And he took his right arm, right hand, closed fist, pointer finger, and pointed to me, to the middle of my chest. Then he pointed back to his own chest. And that means equal. Okay. It means that it didn't see me as being better, it see me as being equal. And it didn't mean if he had done it to himself first, it would have been he was better than me. Okay. So that's the way that was, is he pointed to me first. And then, yes. After he did that, I've got somebody knocking here, but after he did that, he continued walking towards me. And as he was closing the distance on me, he gave me two more pieces of sign language. Elbows in the same spot towards his hips, hands out in front of him from the hips out, palms down, equally apart, palms down, fingers together, looked at me, and then he turned his palms up. I took that to mean that he had no food. I'm taking everything into consideration on we were hunting, and I'm figuring right now that or at that time anyways, that there could be more than one of them, and they were hunting the same deer that I was hunting that morning. And they didn't have any food, and they're looking for food. And I'm also thinking to myself, is there going to come a point that I'm going to have to relay this information back to this forest person? Okay. And he continues to walk towards me. During that time, I took into consideration to check my breath, and my breath was still coming back towards me, traveling over pretty much my right shoulder. I looked at my wristwatch. I don't remember what time it was. I know it was 10 minutes after 10 or 11 minutes after the hour. I don't remember the exact time anymore, but that much I do remember. I even looked at because the shotgun was now pointed basically down. I looked at the compass on the shotgun, a hand-me-down shotgun, and my great uncle had a compass mounted on it. Not that it would have been any good anyways, but I just need some things to check in on. And I remember an airplane flying over, going towards Bradley International Airport, because I was right on that flight line anyways. But he continued to walk towards me, and now I'm really taking in a lot more information. I can see him very clearly. We're at the 35-yard mark or so, where his hair looked very black, and he looked like he had a lot of hair on his face. I could see that wasn't true. Now it blended in that well, and I could see also now I would have to say he's like half the distance, at least half the distance. I give it like maybe 15 yards away or so. I can see he's got blue eyes. He continues to walk towards me, and he gives me another hand signal. Again, he uses that right arm, right hand, fist closed, pointer finger, and he points over my shoulder to the left, to the right. And the whole time he's doing these things, he's looking at me and seeing if I'm understanding these things. like a teacher would. If you watch a teacher teach somebody, or if you've ever had that experience, you're looking for that light to go on with an individual. Like I said, it would have been easy for me to go down and just say I see one. The average length of time is between 5 and 11 seconds on a sighting, and this was already exceeding that. And who would have been believing something like this that many years ago? So you can only imagine. People get flack for this today. Or I have constantly, and I see a lot of it in the community. But now he's right up on me, and he stopped directly in front of me. He's 5 feet. I say 5 feet. I used to say 5 yards because it's just terrifying in a way, to think that something was that close. It was just a little bit of a mind block for me to put that out there for everybody, because I think you have enough to be sucking in right now, on all this information. But what I used to say is he stuck his hand out in front of me, and I had to look down at his hand. So understand that that's 5 feet. Okay, he wasn't way back there, and maybe somebody will say, well, they have arms that are like 12 feet long, whatever. I'm telling you that I was standing right next to him. He put his hand down between the two of us, and I looked straight down at his hand. And I could see it as plain as day. I could see the back of his hand before he turned it over. And then everywhere that you have hair on the back of your hands, they have hair in the exact same spot. Same thing with your forearm, same thing with their forearm. His hair was about 5 to 6 inches long, and it wasn't black. It was dark brown. And the skin was the same. I try to describe it as like not black, like Jamaican. Some Jamaican people are very, very dark brown, is where it might pick up different hues even, but it matched so well with the hair, and the sun was just striking right, just glinting off of the hair, where I could actually see, that it was brown and not black, and it blended in perfectly well with its skin. I'm definitely seeing blue eyes when I look at him. I looked at him, and his nose was exactly what a lot of people describe and not say. When some people say it was ape-like. Okay, well, what's ape-like? No, what I've seen and what some other people have seen that are very good friends of mine now. It's a kind of very closed group that we have on people who have had really, really close encounters. And it was a cross between a Native American nose, uh, an African American, and like a boxer just pushed in a little bit, and a Neanderthal. And he had a brow ridge. So you can imagine what I'm looking at. When he showed me his palm, and I looked down at his palm, I started dropping. I started getting a little bit antsy. I was concerned being at that close to me, being a fighter, being at that range from something like that. I didn't know if it was trying to distract me so it could just grab me, or what it was going to do. So I started dropping my hand down to my sidearm. I carried a sidearm too. And I recommend that other people do too when you go out in the woods. Carry something for your protection. I don't care if it's a knife or what it is, or something to survive in the woods overnight, or maybe for 3 days. As my hand was just making a purchase on the grip of my sidearm, he picked up my body movement. I was trying to really be um, nonchalant about it, trying to maintain looking at his palm, looking up at him to see if he was going to move, and dropping my hand out there, and he's not going to catch me. I'm not going to move my shoulder. I'm just going to move my arm. And he caught it, and he didn't really like that at all. And he started tapping the palm that he was showing me. He was adamant that I should look at his palm. So I did. I studied his palm. I don't know why it wanted me to look at his palm. Even to this day, I've had people ask me if I was familiar with the covenant that Native Americans had with them. I wasn't until just recently, because I've been doing research on me. Why did this happen to me? And what do all these things mean? You'll find out in a little while here. But that's when I took the opportunity to look back up at him. I stood just a little bit above the bicep, up below the shoulder. 6 foot, roughly 6'3" at the time. He looked at me and just did a gentle nod at me. I did my sign language that I didn't have any food, that we were equal brothers, but that I didn't have any food, you know. And then I pointed over his left, tried to, and over his right. And that's when that was it right there. Is he made a decision that he was going to be leaving. And he looked back over that stone wall and he put both his hands up to his mouth like a megaphone, and he whooped 3 times, and it was about a second and a half in between each whoop. And some people may say, well, how do you know that that was a second and a half? Well, got a lot of experience in time control, and I can, you can, if anybody is a musician and they play music, you kind of develop that, okay, your rhythm, all right. And that's what it was like. It was about a second and a half in between each whoop. He looked back at me and he nodded back at me again. He looked back over at stone wall and he whistled. And it was the same kind of a whistle that we used in our hunting party to alert other people in the hunting party that either we picked up track, we maybe seen something that was, pertinent, or seen one running away. So we whistled to bring somebody over to our location or whatever. But it sounded exactly like that. And I remember many times out hunting that things like that would happen and people would get separated from the hunting party. So that's something just to consider, because later on, some of the things that happened here really bothered me. It knew how to approach me, but it looked back at me after it whistled. It also gave another hand signal to the other beings or forest people in its hunting party that it wanted them, or one of them, to go back. And he pointed back in the direction that he just came from over to me. And he looked back at me and he nodded his head a little bit, like out of respect. And he turned and he went right back towards that tree, straight out to about maybe 55 yards out. We measured that distance too. It was just a tad off. And he turned to basically face me. And at that moment, all heck kind of broke loose on the other side of that stone wall again. It sounded like a freight train coming. If anybody has ever heard a moose running through the woods, they can make one hell of a lot of noise. And this sounded like a cross between a moose and a rhinoceros coming through those woods. And it was headed right towards Drake Brook. So it would have had to go over the stone wall, over the path, over Drake Brook, and run out to that location. And that's when I picked up movement, right where it should have crossed over the stone wall and either landed in that pathway or on the other side of the pathway. I picked up a flash of like tan, or I called this one here cinnamon colored. Okay. And then I seen it jump the brook. And this thing was faster than any deer that I've ever shot on the run. It was literally elbows and heels, and it went running right over to the other one. Now, again, I'd like just to let people know that when this happened to me, I never heard the Sierra sounds. Everybody out there 7 years ago when I first started coming out with this, they didn't know that they whistled. They didn't even know that that was really them whooping. They definitely would argue with you about them getting in trees and eating meat 7 years ago. Now we're on a different thing here, but this is what I tell people. If you've never seen a dog in your entire life and you hear barking and a cat comes walking out, but you've never seen a cat either, you don't know whether that cat was barking until you see the dog walk out and then the dog barks. Well, I can tell you this, that the day that I heard the Sierra sounds, I just wanted to just scream. I wanted to, where's Ron Moorhead's number? I want to give this guy a call right now. But the other one ran over to the bigger one there. and stopped right there. And they're kind of quarter facing each other, but still facing me. So that cinnamon colored one was on its right hand side. The cinnamon colored one was uh, over its shoulder, about neck level on it, which puts it a lot taller than me, anyways. And the two of them proceed to have this little chatter back and forth. And that's what I heard. Is I heard like what you referred to as a samurai chatter. And some people go, well, that one there didn't sound like that one there, and this and that. Well, neither do I, neither do you. When you get mad, you sound one way. When you're happy, you sound another way. Depends on the topic that you're talking about. And I had somebody say to me that, do you think that maybe the bigger one was the alpha and he was chewing the juvenile out? And the way that they acted, yeah. So this is what happened. They had a little thing going on there, and the bigger one pointed directly at me. I was still standing in the same spot. I never moved. And he pointed me right out. And that smaller one actually had to bend down just a little bit to look underneath this branch on a sapling. And it did double take on me. It couldn't believe I was standing there. So yeah, I think that the bigger one was saying, what the heck happened here? What the heck happened here? How did this man get here? And that's when the bigger one made another gesture to the smaller one. I mean, right up to that point right there, I was really thinking about following them. Wherever they were going to go, I wanted to follow them. I wanted to know more about them. I was really intrigued. I've never seen one before. I didn't think that they really existed anymore. I thought maybe the Patty Grimlin film there was just a fluke, and there was only one left in the world, and now it's got to be dead. So here I am, with one standing out here, and I'm like, wow, man. Anyways, I wanted to follow him, but that big one gave that smaller one a hand gesture to do a semicircle around to my right, pointing to his chest with that same hand, fist, finger, and told him to basically do a semicircle around me, which would have brought him back around behind where the beech nuts were that looked like an ambush. They must have ambushed him there. And then pointed to himself, same hand signal, and showed that he was going to go around to my left-hand side, in a semicircle. So it was at that point there, my spidey senses started tingling, and I just didn't think that it was a wise idea. They didn't want me. This one did not want me following them at all. But I needed to go over to the tree and measure off on the tree on how tall this thing was. I needed as much information as I possibly could get, because I knew that if I made it through this, that maybe I may live long enough to share this story with everybody who's listening out there. Maybe you'll listen well enough to understand that our next step is communication. These things are really smart. I think they have more to offer than what people want to think they have to offer. But anyways, I made it over to that tree, and I found that little piece of moss on there. So I stood next to the tree and I put my hand on top of my head. And then from that point on, I measured up, because I'm actually a butcher. So I understand what 1 inch is on my hand. Okay. And I measured up to that mark on the tree, and it was 7'8" is what I came up with. And I figured this thing was fit. So I figured this thing weighed north of 500 pounds. It was, I've had some people say it's something this size probably was around 600 pounds. But when I say fit, I mean unbelievably fit. And like I said before, it was 7'8" anyways. And I tried to find the footprints by the tree. It happened to be that was a knoll actually. And it went down to where there would be a vernal pool in the springtime. It was just above the brook, where the brook came out. And so there was old ferns there. So I seen where it was matted down, where it had gone through there. And so I tried to make a match the stride on it because it wasn't running. When it left my position, it was not running, and it was not speed walking. It was just, uh, I guess, lackadaisically walking out to there. And I couldn't match the stride on it. So I decided I was going to take a little bit of a jump, and I still couldn't match the stride on there. So I backed up just a little bit and took a bit of a short run and tried to jump into it and just missed it. So I know that had to be an accurate figure that I came up with, 7 foot 8 inches tall. From that point, I left the area, but I've had people say to me, well, why didn't you go over there and look to see if they got a deer? There was no need to go over there. The noise that I heard over there was for people who are fighters and you have a 250-pound bag and you want to take a baseball bat or actually kick that thing with your leg as hard as you can kick it. That thud, I call it the ugly thud. Okay, that's the noise that I heard. I heard limbs snapping, not branches snapping. I think they had a beat down going on over there. I personally believe that they were hunting this deer. That was the ambush point. That big one was set up on that position there. So if anything came over that stone wall, that it was going to go after it like wolves do. Wolves will wait up a ways from where the rest of them are chasing a deer or whatever, and then pick up the run from there on to where the other animal out, so that the whole pack can close in on it. I think that he was just setting up on an ambush there, and that he probably belly crawled up to that tree because, like I say, there wasn't anything there. I didn't see him there when I first got into position there. It was the part where I seen him in my peripheral, the movement, because I was still trying to remain cognizant of everything around me. I didn't want my position to be given away, but I left that area not the same way I went in, because I knew that one of them was doing a semicircle from that end, and I would have had to have been walking. If I stayed on that path, I would have had to have been walking by that beech nut grove. I just didn't feel right about it. So I went down the side of Drake Mountain. It's a lot steeper, so that I would be able to see a lot farther uh, on all sides, plus down there. And if anything tried to come in from on top of me, it would have been difficult for them to come in on top of me. Maybe thrown things at me, but it would have been difficult for them to come down after me. And then just get back in the car, and I just did what I call a encounter of the third time. For a couple of days, I was just started drawing. I didn't want the picture in my mind that I had of the way that it looked to leave me, because I wanted to be able to give that information to people in the future, and here it is today. So it's all yours. You do what you want with it, but I can tell you this: the right thing to do is do a Jane Goodall, is try to communicate with them. That's what everybody needs to do, because we don't need DB. We have enough information. We understand that they have a language. We also understand that they can use sign language. We might not know all the sign language they have. You know, um, we know that they use glyphs. It doesn't do anybody any good to uh, know that there's structures unless you know what to do with that evidence that there's structures. And that just tells you where their habitat is, to be pushing them out of there. It's all about the feed and what they do. So I'm going to invite Dan back in there here so that you can all hear what he has to ask me. Thank you.
You guys, what did I tell you? Honestly, I've listened to thousands of podcasts. I've listened to thousands of people's encounters and stories, whether they were Class A sightings, Class B sightings. I've heard dogman stories. I've heard UFO stories. I've heard alien stories. I've heard hauntings. Ernie, I'm going to be honest with you. This is the most extraordinary fascinating encounter I have heard to date. I thought
Appreciate it.
I had a good encounter. I honestly thought that my sighting when I was 12, I mean, I still think it's amazing.
Every encounter that's out there is amazing, and a lot of people, you may not want to mention one thing, like if he crossed the road and put his hand out at you or something. That's information.
Yeah.
That's witness information. There's not a thing on this earth that's ever been really ever been proven without having an eyewitness, even if you're looking through a microscope or whatever it is. You know, my one of my things is a guy that I work with. I said, you know, because he asked me one day about this, and I said, I I, I don't know how I'd be if I was you and you were me telling me this story, because that's where it is. But for me, it's sort of kind of easy, but it's not, because I have to relive every single moment of that, you know, and remember where I am in it for you people to
Mhm.
understand. So I don't start panicking. People ask me why I didn't panic that day. I was trained. It was my upbringing. It's how I was brought up. You know, the way I was brought up. Um, I didn't have that fight or flight in me. These are all pertinent things that you should all understand.
Mhm.
You know, your mind will play vicious games with you on Uncanny Valley. Your mind won't be able to accept it. You know, um, all different kinds of things are going on there. So to me, everybody's encounter is very good, and it's very important that we should listen to every single one of them. And I don't care if we think that this person maybe was doing quaaludes or whatever the case may be, because I've heard them all, and I can assure you that they are out there for their own reasons, you know. But listen to them anyways, because it's the one that kind of sneaks in there.
Mhm.
You know, I've had people ask me. They said, "Well, you know, Ernie, do you know anybody else with an encounter like this?" Well, it sounds very egotistical of me to come out and say, "Well, no, but actually, not like this, but similar to this.
Right.
Sure, I do. You know, they're there, we're here, but we are the ones that are the very small percentage minority, and we are constantly laughed at. And some of us
Yeah.
are very extremely um, astute at research on what they're doing. And you just had a show with a gentleman that I'm good friends with, Jason
Mhm.
Miller. And I assure you, when you folks listen to Jason, um, Jason's a former combat medic, and when this man goes in, he goes in prepared.
Yep.
But you know what? His knapsack only weighs 21 pounds, and he even has a just in case IV bag
Yep.
in there. He's
Absolutely.
well prepared. You don't carry a bag on you just for you, folks. You carry a bag on you because, and this has happened to me, in case you find other people and you can save those other people.
Mhm.
That's why you carry it on you, not just for you. So go into the woods prepared, know what to do when you're in there, and understand the biggest thing that I can tell people, you know, when they say I haven't had an encounter, they are drawn. They are drawn to people who are, let's just say, honest spiritually.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't want anything to do with people who are warlike. And you will find that the majority of the people who are out there, who are hunters and stuff, we all had, my wife had asked me, what was I thinking that day? And ironically, it took a lot of thinking and meeting a gentleman by the name of Chief Ernest. I believe he's the great grandson of Crazy Horse, I think it was, or Cinnabon. But I get to talk to him one on one at a powwow. And he asked me a lot of questions. And one of the things he said to me was that I walked in two worlds. And then it dawned on me, you know, what was I doing that morning walking up that trail? I was two stepping, I was becoming
Mhm.
a deer. Now, for the people that believe in the woo or whatever the case may be, um, that's just my experience. Is that what happened? Is that why they did not see me? I don't know that. I'm just saying those are the things. I've a good friend of mine at one time who's since passed over. Some people may recognize the name is Gary Arnold. We talked right after his encounter, and I assure you that he had the same mindset. A lot of hunters have the same mindset when we go out there. We're at total peace when we are out there, way before anything ever even happens. We are just in tune with everything that's going on out there in the woods. That's what these forest people are like.
Yeah.
They are masters of the woods, and they can eat a lot of different things. All the evidence is there.
Right. So you're right. I did take down some questions, and then shortly after I wrote the question down, you answered my question. Uh, but so when you heard, well, my first one is so when you said he squared up, so he actually turned to face you,
Yeah.
and he was communicating with you, but as he was communicating, he was walking closer to you.
He'd walk and he'd make that eye contact with me and looking at me like, do you understand? Before he would continue walking very slowly, before he ever even took the next step, he was actually reading me, if you can imagine
Yep.
that. You want to make sure that this person it's got a gun. Are you reading me correctly here? I'm going to come closer and then calm down. One of those. That's why I say that what bothered me years after listening to Missing 411 was it knew how to approach me.
Right.
It,
And that's really scary when you think it. Thank goodness something, nothing happened to you. But when you said that he would make a motion and he would stop to see if you understood, we do the same thing.
we do.
And like people will do this every single day and we don't really realize it, but I'm going to point it out. You're at a dog park. You have your dog with you. You see another dog, or you're out walking your dog, or you're out hiking and someone's walking with their dog. What do you do when you approach that dog? You stop, you you talk into a very calm tone. Of course, if the owner's there, friendly, no, not friendly. Oh, no, friendly. You can pet him, even though if they say it's friendly. Then you do what? You extend the back of your hand, and you walk, and then you stop, and you're reading that dog's body language to see if they can say, okay, yeah, this person coming up to me this person's okay. Then you take another little step, you extend your hand out. So, a lot of people don't understand that we do this every day. And it's absolutely fascinating and extraordinary that I'm not saying he was looking to you as a dog, but he was doing the exact same thing because number one, they know what a firearm is. They're not stupid, not in the least. And he sees that you're armed. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to cool down the situation. He's trying to make sure that, okay, number one, I'm almost 8 feet tall. This guy, from what I understand, I'm not supposed to exist, and here I am standing in front of this human, and his mind must be racing. So he's trying to calm the situation down, and he's trying to extend that bridge of communication to you. That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, I've heard other encounters. You were within 5 feet of one. The closest I was to mine, and I was inside a moving vehicle, I was about 15, 20 feet. My buddy Josh, who when he had his encounter with his wife, when one Dukes of Hazzard across the front of his car, that's 5, 10 feet. Jason, uh, Bart Nunley, Martin Groves, Daryl Denton, all these guys, these are all huge guys in this community, Doug Hycheck, Scott Carpenter, Mr. Freeman, all these people have had these amazing encounters. Yours is the only one that I've heard where they have actually tried to communicate with you. And then you're seeing an interaction with a younger one or a smaller one, okay? You're hearing them converse, and then the bigger one giving direction, and then this one following out that direction.
Yeah.
I so wish I could time travel and be in your shoes, but in the same instance, I don't want to, because your mind goes into a dark place. Because you said it, you could have become a missing 411 case like that,
Right.
and no one would have ever known what happened.
Yep. They would never found me in that area.
No.
Absolutely. I just was speaking with Russell Easterbrooks. He wrote he put me in a book, Sasquatch book that is now ranked, I think, 65 as historically, and 85 is historiological in there. And when I asked him, so why do you want to do this? He said, because I think it should be recorded. But I speak to him very frequently, and one of the things he just asked me last week, you want to know if I seen the whites of its eyes?
Mhm.
I said, actually, when it made eye contact with me, every time it made a gesture towards me, it would cock its head a little bit, like you would do to a kid or a dog. You understand,
Mhm.
and yeah, I seen that, but it was something that we lost, it was something that bothered me during COVID when everybody had to wear a mask. And the reason why it bothered me is because
Mhm.
children rely on those facial expressions when they're born and
Mhm.
when they're growing up. Do you understand me? Even
Mhm.
a child can do that. So that's what it was doing with me. It wanted to see if the light was going on with me. It was treating me the way it should be treating me. Like it knew that I would not understand its language,
Right.
So it just used I'll call it pig sign or whatever, to try to get me to understand what its intentions were. When it showed me its palm, though, that just kind of, up until that one point right there, I thought I was understanding what was going on.
Mhm.
And to see its palm and no lifeline on there, and to everybody that's out there, it didn't stink and it was not dirty. And I've heard this many times, and I just had this conversation with Dan Nedrello, that he actually smelt flowers and stuff like that. I said, well, could it be that either they were in heat or they actually do groom? Now we're going to be working on behavior here, because we already are working on behavior, but this proves something towards behavior, because they have been seen with feces on their back end. Things don't run around with feces on their back end.
No.
Even a dog won't. A dog would drag its rear end on
Mhm.
the ground or whatever. And these things have been I witnessed as in bathing. And I don't
Mhm.
mean bathing, sitting there scrubbing. I mean playing around in the water or whatever the
Yep.
case may be, even with the babies and stuff like that. So I do believe they are very clean. And from what I've seen, and other people in this very small community have witnessed, eyewitness testimony, is they like to remain clean like that, which makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. It increases your chances or your success of harvesting a deer
Mhm.
on a hunt.
You know, my belief with the odor, the stench, the smell, whatever you want to call it, I think it's something that they can control. I think there's some glands, like look at elephants, look at any animal that can produce a musk. And I think that's what it is. It's like a musk. And I don't think that it's something as like a defense mechanism. I think it's like a rattle to a rattlesnake. It's going to produce that
Could be.
musk to
Yeah,
let you know, hey, uh, we're here.
yeah.
And
It could very well be.
if you're not picking up the hint, then we're
Yeah,
gonna have to go to step 2. And a lot of times you'll hear people say they walk into it, and then 10 steps later, they don't smell anything. And I think that
good point.
it produces a musk or a scent, whatever you wanna call it, as a warning, not as something, because like you said, I have a hard time believing. I'm just gonna throw it out there. When people think of the dirtiest, filthiest animal out there, they think of a pig.
Yeah,
Pigs prefer clean concrete over a mud waller. The only reason they go to a mud waller is to, one, cool off, two, to get parasites off of them. That's it. When I lived in Lakeville, Minnesota, 15 years ago or whatever, 10 years ago, I lived in a rental property that was my former brother-in-law's house, and they had a potbelly pig that was not the cute little tiny potbelly pigs like they were supposed to be. This thing was a big, massive 200 plus pound male boar. And he would let you know when the hay in his pen needed to be changed. Like he would cause a ruckus. And then I would go out and I would clean his pen. And I found it very fascinating because on the back of his pen, it wasn't concrete, but it was wood. And it was funny. His bedding never smelled like urine or fecal matter. That was all outside. But it was just that he needed to have it changed because it had been in there in a while. And then when I cleaned it out, he would lay down on the clean floor until I brought the new hay in, and then I would cut the lines, and he'd get in there and he'd root around in it and set it the way he'd want it to. And then any areas that he would go to the bathroom in, he would wait until I cleaned up that area before he would go back in there, in that area where he defecated or whatnot. Same thing with his waller. I would dig out his waller, put water in there, and then he'd go in there. And when he was cool, fine. If he got dirty, he'd let us know. And we'd had a bristle brush. We'd scrub him down with water and soap and give him, and he loved it. He thought it was the greatest thing in the world. So a lot of people need to understand that what you're smelling may not be feces.
Right.
It could be that musk scent. They do. I truly believe what you say. They're a highly intelligent animal. With filthiness comes disease. I don't think that they're going to walk around smelling like a sewer.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I got another question. So when it showed you its hand,
Yeah.
and it's like look in my hand. How massive was its hand?
I can tell you this right off first off that it was all body proportionate. That people want to say their thumb is really tiny and short. No, it was like looking at if you can look at it, if you can, I wouldn't know what like Andre the Giant's hand would look like next to it'd be a lot bigger than my hand. Well, his hand would have been bigger than Andre the Giant's hand. Okay, so let's say like the size of a baseball glove. I guess it was pretty big, but I was more focused on the palm, the cuticles, the lines in its hand. I wanted to see, did they have the knuckles like we have? It gave me enough time to study it.
Yeah.
How about that? How long that was, I couldn't tell you how long it was, but I was looking for something that was wrong. Yeah, because I figured when he tapped his hand really hard,
Mm-hmm.
I figured that he really wanted me to study his hand, which I did. I was asked, I think last year by JJ Squatchman, Jeff Messenger from Connecticut, that does research in the area where I had that encounter, if I was aware of the covenant.
Yeah.
And that's something that the Native Americans had, and it was actually something that my generation kind of grew up with. You take a little jackknife, cut your finger, and the other guy cuts his finger, and you make a covenant. Well, they did it with their palms.
Yeah, like blood brothers.
Like blood brothers.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was asking me, hey, do I have a knife? Or even if I thought of it at that time, I don't think I was going to pull my knife out and try to cut its hand. I don't think that would have been a wise decision, because it noticed me trying to reach my handgun. So.
Yeah. Did you notice, like you said, it didn't have a lifeline?
Right.
So the line in our hand, you're saying
Yeah.
it didn't have some of these lines.
Correct. And I've been informed that some people are born without those lifelines, but
Mhm.
it didn't have a lifeline. That's all I can say. I don't know why it wanted me. It was adamant about me looking at it at its palm. It just kind of blows my mind.
Did you notice any calluses on its hand or anything?
Uh, no, but then again, when you look at callus, because me being a butcher, believe it or not, I used to have a lot of callus on my hand. You wouldn't think so because I'm just holding a knife, or your hands are kind of wet sometimes because of the blood or whatever, and you don't think you'd get callus, but you do. But that callus actually turns yellowish colored, and I did notice that his palms were not white; they were kind of yellowish, like they had some wear to them, like its skin was thicker,
Yeah.
than what it should have been. Whether that was callous or not, I don't know. Same thing with its feet when it walked away from me. You know, no noise. By the way, I did not hear any noise from him when he. I don't remember hearing any noise from him when he walked away from me. But I tried to see underneath his feet when he walked, and you could see his feet uh, swing up, as you call it, and you bend your toes, and your heel goes back up. And that's what I noticed too, is that the bottoms of its feet were the same as its palms. Its skin was it looked kind of thick. I don't want to say leathery, but
Right.
it didn't look as fragile as us, like chicken skin.
Yeah.
It looked like it could hold up to something.
Right.
But it was very clean, and that's the only thing I could figure out is why it wanted me to look at that, unless I overlooked a scar on his hand. And that's what I was asked by JJ. Did you notice a scar? And I can't confirm it, nor can I deny the fact that if it had a scar, because if it had a scar, then that would have been lead me to believe that it was signaling me that it had a covenant, an
Yeah.
agreement.
Yeah. That it's
Strange.
like you're inside my mind because I'm getting ready to ask you another question. Boom, you answered. So I mean, it's amazing. So did it look like it was aggravated with you at any time, or was it more like, hey, I understand we're in this predicament together, and he pretty much, like you said, do you understand that he's telling you we're equals, but it did it kind of seem like it was sympathizing with you because, like, maybe thinking, hey, at any time you're done. So was he trying his best, trying to communicate with you, hoping you would understand that he's not going to do anything to you in that sense?
That's exactly how I felt. There was no aggravation at all. He did not. It seemed like he was aggravated. He seemed like he was trying to teach a juvenile, like he was trying to teach a toddler something.
Yeah.
It knew exactly what to do to approach me, exactly what to do, and it succeeded. Obviously, it succeeded at that. Um, like I said, every single thing that it did, it looked at me and studied me, watched every mannerism that I had to see if I was going to overreact. And I remember at one point, I knew my shotgun was going to be useless, and maybe
Mhm.
that's what set me off right there, was the fact that um, if it wanted to bum rush me, uh, even at 35 yards, where would I put the round to begin with?
Mhm.
It would have taken all of my rounds, and there was obviously more than one of them
Mhm.
that was there. So it never became aggravated with me. It was, I think, slightly annoyed when I tried to reach my handgun. You
Let
know,
let me ask a question on that real quick. So you said he noticed your hand movement, and
yeah,
I assume he looked down and saw that you were trying to reach for.
no,
He didn't. So
that's not what tipped him off. That's what kind of like really uh, got me a slightly concerned, because in martial arts, what you're looking for is you're looking for any kind of body movement. You want to, like driving behind somebody in the city of Boston. If that Boston driver goes like this, rest assured that's their directional light. They're going over there that
yeah.
way.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
Same thing with a boxer. You may want to use what they call a faking technique, or in Japanese, I believe it's called Renrikyuwazi. Okay, you want to fake the person into doing something that they don't want to do. So if you
Mhm.
want to throw a punch in karate, you don't want to move your shoulder first.
Mhm.
You want to get that arm going before you get some beef in behind that.
Right.
And that's what I was utilizing. I was trying to lower my hand down to my sidearm without moving my shoulder or without my arm really being noticed at all by him. And he picked up that body movement. He picked up that body language and he looked right down at my hand.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah,
What was his facial expression when he? Because you said he didn't like that.
dissatisfied, dissatisfied, dissatisfied. He looked at me like disappointed. Like you would look at somebody like there. That's the feeling that I got, like disappointed, and
Yeah.
that's when he started tapping his palm a couple of times. It's like, okay, and I got to pay attention here. I guess I just kind of like try to get away with something, and he's correcting me, and he wants me to look at his palm. So I'm going to look at his palm, and that was it. And after that, like I said, I did some of the sign language back to him, and he actually nodded like respectfully at me, before he made those whoop noises, and he did it again right before he left. He gave me a respectful nod.
Now, when the cinnamon one comes into picture,
Mm,
okay, and
yeah.
he calls, we'll call the big one Gus. We'll call him Gus. So when Gus called in the cinnamon bear, okay, when the
Yeah.
cinnamon bear comes in, um, did he look back at you as Gus was trying to communicate with him?
Not at first, no. It's Gus, the big one there, was talking to that little cinnamon bear colored one there. And I distinctly could pick up that they were talking. He was talking about me or chewing him out, asking him questions. That's what the gist of it that I got, asking him questions. And that's when he decided, Gus there decided to point at me. When he pointed at me, that cinnamon colored bear one looked underneath that branch on that sapling there, and did a double take on me. Like obviously, it must have been the big one ratted me out. Wanted to know, well, don't tell me that you didn't see anybody because there he is standing right there.
Right.
And he looked over and spotted me standing there, and he was like, he was taken aback by it too.
Now, when
So,
Gus pointed at you, was it like pointing at you, or did he kind of go like this off in your direction? Like,
oh no, he pointed right at me. There was no denying that. He ratted me right out. He pointed right at my location, right where I was standing, right directly. He's there, right there. Like you would point a deer out to a fellow hunter. If you were both standing, you'd say, you don't see him. It's right there. You know?
through this whole situation, this is what I'm getting from it. Okay, me being prior military,
Yeah.
okay, learning how to set up an ambush, or you're kind of sitting down and you're pulling security, 360-degree security.
Yeah.
They had set up some type of either an ambush point for the deer, or they had a hunting element that was setting up, and then they had a security element behind that one. And he's wanting to know, how in the world did you let that guy get inside this perimeter and not know he was there? Because he came up behind me and I had no clue he was there until I turned around and there he was. Man, Ernie, that is amazing, man. That is so fascinating. I mean, I could listen to the story all over again and come up with a whole brand new batch of questions for you. I mean, it's just, I know I'm missing so much stuff, in this. I can't. Oh man.
The thing is, Daniel, is I knew I knew from that day that I had some information, that I had to, because there has to be somebody, I mean, else out there that has seen this or something. So I started my little search, and only to really, really be whipped pretty bad, and then I started just praying that, please, there's somebody else in this world, please be there and lock elbows with me, stand out in the field with me, because this is just um, too much for me to handle, only to get to where I am now and say that I'm standing here for you. I understand what my message is. So everybody that's out there, you can choose not to believe it. I don't give you an opportunity to use dead words like opinion or expert, because let me
Mhm.
tell you, opinion is a back door for
Mhm.
everybody. An expert is a back door, because I assure you, there are experts out there. There are eyewitnesses who are experts in what they've seen. There are experts. Your mother was an expert when she taught you how to tie your shoes,
Mhm.
until you met a Boy Scout who taught you how to tie more knots.
Mhm.
So those experts do exist in this world. So stop using those words. Start looking at the evidence and start looking inside yourself, because that's what I had to do.
Right.
We're all biased. When you find yourself being a little biased, take another look at it, because you've thrown everybody that's out there that has some good information for you to carry on into the next stage. Like you have the Randy Harringtons that are out there. Oh, I don't know if there's anybody else like him that are out there. We'll say Barton Nunley and Daryl Denton and Martin Groves, and if one of them guys
Ron
told me,
Moorhead.
Ron Moorhead, perfect example. I love it. Now, if one of them said, "Hey, look, there's a dog man that he happens to come up there and he uses that little campsite over there. We're camping out here. Don't go over there tonight." I'm not going to do it. Okay, I'm not going to do it. If you said there was a pterodactyl over there after what happened to me, just to be quite frank with everybody listening, I never believed this stuff. But once this happened to me, I speak with people who are getting ready to pass over and stuff, and I relay this message back to them. I tell them this encounter, and I tell them this, that if this is true, then what else is true that's out there?
Mhm.
Okay. I don't know, but it blew my world apart. I went to parochial school, and all I know is they never taught that to me. What I seen, what I know, what I heard, what I witnessed, and what I'm giving you a testimony on is these things are definitely out there. And if you want to experience it, you need to really check yourself in. You
Mhm.
need to look deep inside your soul and to become at peace, like a lot of hunters do that are out there, become more spiritual and thank. I don't care if your tree is your God or a rock is your God, thank it for giving you that
Mhm.
moment in time, because that's what they're looking for out there.
And you hit the nail on the head. I think that if you have a sighting of any kind, and again, I know I said earlier, you know, uh, something to the effect that your sighting, your encounter is absolutely amazing, and I agree with you that every encounter is special. Every encounter is amazing. It may not be to the extent of what yours is, because all of them are exciting, all of them are frightening. I mean, I go back and I think about Wes Germer's exciting. Episode 2 on Sasquatch Chronicles, he relays what him and his brother encountered, and that's a terrifying encounter. You
Yeah.
know, people talk about, when they hear me say, "This is my sighting. This is what led up to my sighting." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, were you scared?" In a way, yes, I was terrified, but in the same instant, I had this encounter with my dad. My dad was like my hero. My dad was the
Right.
big man of the woods, uh, regardless if there was a 10-foot tall forest person or creature, whatever you want to call it, you know, 600 feet away from us. My dad could do anything and everything. My dad was Vietnam veteran. You know, my dad saw war. My dad could get me out of anything. So did I have that fear? Yes, but I didn't have it to the extent where then you have Mr. Humphreys from the Hanobi incident in Oklahoma, where this thing was attacking his house and
Right.
trying to come through the front door. I didn't have that terror that he had, you know. Um, and there are people out there that have had those similar encounters, like Mr. Humphreys, that will never come forward because it shook them up so bad. They will never talk about it, and Josh and I, we did a live uh podcast on Mr. Humphrey's whole encounter, and the way that he was treated by the investigators is absolutely appalling. And I'm friends with Mr. Humphreys on Facebook, and I've asked him if he would come on my show. I don't expect him to, you know, but it's just if by some chance he sees this, you know, I 100% support him and his decision, to pretty much tell people to get off his land. Um, I wish I would have got a chance to speak with Mr. Carpenter and Mr. Freeman, and I'm still waiting for my chance to talk to Mr. Groves and hopefully Ron Moorhead,
Yeah.
and just experience what they've done, because I look at mine, I didn't find my sighting as a terrifying experience. The two encounters that I had prior to that when I was around 7 and 9, they're terrifying. I didn't find them terrifying for the simple fact of who I had with me and that I never had a sighting. So I couldn't put a creature with the action. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I didn't know, and then my last encounter was with my little brother. That's the encounter that stopped me from going off a beaten path. That's the encounter that stopped me from going miles off the beaten path to find my own little oasis in the woods to go camping, hopefully where no one's ever camped before. That's the encounter, because I saw the look on my brother's face when he saw the thing cross behind me, from one side of the road to the other. And then his words to me with terror and tears was, "Tell mom I love her. I'll stay here so you can get to the car. I want you to get out of here." My brother was willing to put himself on the line to make sure I was safe. And I wasn't going to have that happen to my little brother, and for you to be 5 foot away to a creature that probably has 4 or 5 times the mass you have, has a good foot, almost 2 feet on you, and you're able to walk out with a better understanding of what's going on out there. This can be compared to your encounter as a religious awakening in a way, because you have something that has the ability to make you disappear. And by the grace of God, and I believe that, you had your wherewithal about you to try to communicate back with it, and he understood that you were not a threat, and allowed you and prevented others in his party to let you leave. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Um, I hear of a lot of encounters that when I first started off, people would tell me, well, they would challenge me on the fact is that there's no way because they're not that peaceful. But from what I've researched and everything, I found it very quite plausible that there are three types. And when they're described as in the three different types, there's lowland, there's, let's say, halfway up the mountain, then there's the top of the mountain.
Mm.
And from reports or eyewitness testimonies that I've gotten, is there's many reasons why they could become violent if you wanted to be ignorant and not heed the warning that they're trying to give you. But then we do have the ones that are quite obviously there's something going on. Could it be interbreeding or something like that? It very well could be. Could it be the breeding time of the year that's going on? It could very well be that. There's many factors that play into that. But what I tell people is to know what it did. It's just information. It's pertinent information. If one comes out, do that hand signal. Do them first two hand signals. Don't alter it. Don't try to make it your own. You're not trying to rebake a perfect apple pie there. You're trying to parlay this information to something that may wind up to be maybe a Jane Goodall moment
Mm-hmm.
that's going on there. I know a lot of people that may disagree with that. I know a lot of people that want to talk about the woo and things like that. There are things that are going on out there that are supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
When people talk about supernatural, I would just like to throw in there and just say, well, I can tell you right now that as strong as this thing looked, there is some things that are going on that are supernatural strength.
Mm-hmm.
This is even an elephant couldn't take a tree, a half of a tree with its trunk, flip it upside down and jam it 4 feet into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that these things can either, unless there's some kind of supernatural strength going on, or there's something else that's out there, and that whatever it is that is out there might not be uh, all that friendly. Who knows? I mean, you can win over a tiger maybe, or that fractured dog if you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
But this is going to be your only way out for the people that are out there that want to say, well, I know people that outran them. You never outran it. If you outran it, dude, or man, you should be in the Olympics, because you would have taken every medal that ever was. All right. There's absolutely no way that you can do that. And you're not gonna, even if I gave you a 500-yard head start, this thing will take you out with a boulder.
Let me.
Okay.
You just said something about someone said, "Well, I outrun one out." No, you didn't. You know, you didn't. Grizzly bears can run top speed around 30 to 35 miles an hour. They
Yeah.
think those big lumbering, stupid 1,200-pound animals don't have any speed. They've been known to run down a moose. They've been known to
Right.
run down deer. Um, so you mentioned that you had watched it walk away from you. What was the movement of it? Was it a fluid moment? Because people say it looked like it was just gliding, or if I saw it running, I saw it looked like it was just gliding up the hill or hovering or whatever. What was its movement like?
Well, and I know some people that might not have that background knowledge to look back on and compare it to anything, but I can tell you right now, is if you look at somebody that's doing parkour,
Hmm.
okay, now they might not be flat running very, very smoothly, but you can see that their rhythm, they're getting ready to move and they're getting ready to do whatever. It was fluid, yet you could still read it. It was just like a natural. There was like it was just it didn't magically glide over the ground. It just
Hmm.
uh, uh, a perfect rhythm, effortless. How about that? Effortless. And the one that ran over, that was just smooth as silk running through the woods. Like I'm pretty sure that what it did is that was coming through those saplings. It was probably grabbing those saplings and slinging itself off the saplings, almost like a parkour runner would do,
Right.
to gain momentum or speed on there. That's the closest that I can come to telling people. It was still touching the ground, but there was no bobbing motion to it.
Yep.
It was flat, smooth.
Kind of we see like a bunch of military when they're marching in formation,
Correct.
where they're so just fluid. There's no head bobbing. Every step is just
Correct.
in perfect step with each other. Yeah, I mean
Yes.
that's amazing. In my sighting, when she turned and took the steps that she took off into the woods, and yes, I said she. Um, it was so fluid. It was just like it almost like you didn't see her move because it was just so like it felt like it was like I'm not saying she was mechanically moving, but it was like a Swiss watch, the movement of a Swiss watch. It was so precise. Like there was no wasted energy, no wasted
Right.
movement when they
Right.
move. So
Right.
yeah, it's amazing. Ernie, I could talk with you all night. I legit could because
Thanks.
I just I can't if I had to give out awards for like the best encounter that I've heard, you would have the award today. Like legit. I mean, again, Jason's award or Jason's encounter. When I talked to
Standing.
him last night, um, I have 3 kids. I have 2 stepkids, but I've been around
Yeah.
since my youngest one was 10 and the
Yeah.
oldest one, she was just going to college. And then I have my daughter from my first marriage.
Hmm.
Do you have any kids by chance?
Oh yeah.
Any
Yeah.
daughters?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the love that a dad has for his son. This is my boy. He's rugged. He's rough. He takes after me. then you have this precious little flower
Mhm.
that's your baby girl, regardless of how old she is. And when Jason was telling his encounter, I started almost having an anxiety attack
Yeah, sure. Mhm.
because of what he was step by step by step. And I literally, I'm glad I was off camera because I had to put my head in part of my shirt to start breathing because I felt like I was getting ready to have a panic attack, like an anxiety attack, because just his is one of the scariest encounters that I've heard,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then with Josh's, that was amazing. Barton Nunley's, like not Barton Nunley, I haven't had him on yet, but Daryl Denton's very first encounter when he was up
Yes.
in the tree stand,
Mhm.
and he goes, that thing was almost eye level with me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and then um, I talked with Doug Hychek and talked about I had dinner with him and his wife, and they told me about an encounter they had with one on Highway 169 where they thought it was a moose moving its antlers around, and it was a Sasquatch standing on the side of the road, and it was like flailing its arms around because it was windy. Later, they found out when they looked on the map that there was a creek down there. So they're thinking because it was so hot that it might have waded around in the creek and it was coming up to try to maybe dry itself off. And it's like
That's
literally,
interesting.
yeah, it was crazy. And they said they saw its fingers, like how, and they said the fingers are
Yeah.
like huge. But you're right. Each encounter is extraordinary. Each encounter,
As information.
no matter how fast or how long that encounter is, it's a piece of a puzzle that we're all trying to piece together. And one day, one person is going to have the finishing piece that's going to put this whole thing together.
Yeah.
And people like you and people like me and everybody else we've been mentioning, if we're still around,
Yeah.
are going to be this is what we're going to do.
I firmly believe that the last part there
Mhm.
is going to be communication. I firmly
Absolutely.
believe that because there are people out there in the field right now who are actually using some of this, and they've already completed the hypothesis on this,
Mhm.
and now they're working on behavior.
Mhm.
And only in behavior are you going to get them to move into you and trust you, and you can't break that trust. Once you break that trust, from everything that I've read and everything, once you break that trust, you have to start over from ground zero. You're not going to win that trust back again,
Yeah.
more than likely. So what are you going to do with that once you have that trust developed with them and you start having that communication? Hopefully, you use it wisely and you try to find out uh, things like um, how do they do what they do?
Mhm.
Because you know what? There are stories, or legends, or history, and Native Americans use the word legend instead of history, and it really means history.
Mhm.
And so, therefore, I'm going to use that word history. In the final days, Big
Mhm.
Brother will come again to dance around the fire,
Yep.
to fight the last battle with us.
I'm
Okay.
telling
And the
you.
last battle will be the spiritual battle.
Mhm.
And when I tell you that there is a message here, take it for what it is. All right. And
Absolutely.
understand and try to do exactly um, what you're hearing.
Let me ask you, what is your opinion on mind speak?
Well, there's a lot of things that can be mind speak. I shouldn't say a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons why the mind speak. Like a magician might be able to get you to control you to do something that you wouldn't want to do, and it would seem like a magic trick to you. Or even mind speak. Let's say that forest person that I encountered wanted me to move somewheres, but maybe a little bit to the right or something, just nod his head like, you do that with a dog.
Yeah.
Just, hey, go like that. Is that mind speak, or is that actually I'm reading body language? You know, this is something that when we actually um, take into consideration what you're being told, and you do wind up sitting down with them because you're not going to have anybody to tell this to.
Mhm.
Okay. And you do wind up sitting down with them, and just maybe you will know the difference between mind speak and not mind speak. Maybe if you came forward and you started talking about it, you'll wind up being somebody that's, well, I can't mention names here because um, it's not throwing somebody under the bus, but it's people that other people don't really believe that's really what's going on.
Yeah.
And could it be like maybe there's a haunting going on there instead?
Mhm.
These are things that we do not know. We
Yeah.
do not know whether we are in the days of Noah. For those of
Right.
you who
Oh,
don't know, then look that up.
yep.
And that's one of the things that Chief Ernest said to me. He said, "You walk in two worlds,
Mhm.
and they have always known you, and they've always watched out for you."
Mhm.
I've never felt intimidated by anything in the woods. I've never worried. I've been able to go out there and take a nap and not worry about a cougar or a snake or a
Mhm.
bear or anything else. So that could obviously be very true right there. But the mind speak, let's fix the tire that's flat on the car first
Right.
instead of sitting in the car and talking about the flat tire. We won't know that answer until we sit down with one.
Right. And I 100% agree with you on that. But see, I don't, I can't prove mind speak. So I'm definitely not saying it's not a probability.
Right?
I just interviewed a lady, and I'll send you a link to my channel if you haven't already seen it. Um, the title of the episode is "Don't Even Bother," and she was, I want to say, she was by herself in their cabin. Her husband was at work, and I think she had her 2 kids with her. And she's a pretty feisty lady. And she was having visitors coming around the cabin, and one, if I remember right, came up on the porch and was trying to open the door. And so she got her pew pew, and she was getting ready to point it at the door, and she said, "I heard in my head, 'Don't even bother. That won't help you.'" And I'm
I
like,
Yeah,
"What?"
I would not discount that one single bit because people are going to have to understand that we have things that are with us ourselves, like our pituitary gland is actually the pineal gland. The
Mhm.
pineal gland has actually been muddied, we'll call it.
The
Okay,
third eye, yeah.
right. There are times in your everybody's life here. There's times of the day, maybe they call it betwixt. You're when you're waking up in the morning, you are neither in this world and you are neither in another place. You're in between both worlds at that time. And those are times that sometimes you'll distinctly maybe hear something like your name being called, and you'd swear that you heard your name being called. Is that mind speak? Or is that coming from, as in the days of Noah, the veil?
Mhm.
Things through the veil. Is that something you are really honestly hearing? And that's something that lady, I would have to say, she honestly heard that. Is this one of the things that they can do? And if it is, this is something that we won't know until they teach us
Mhm.
that. And in order for that to have happen, you're not going to get it out of a dead bee, a
Hmm.
DB, I should say. Okay.
Yeah,
You're only
exactly.
going to get it by sitting down next to the master or
Mhm.
next to the expert and being taught that. I
Mhm.
think that it's something that we as humans used to be able to do that we can no longer do for one reason or another,
Mhm.
and that they know how to do that. And that's why the trust was broken. We are too warlike.
Mhm.
We have too many things going on, and that little acorn gland there
Mhm.
isn't working so well for
Right.
us at times.
Well, we've been on for about an hour and 40 minutes, and
Wow. Okay.
I would love if you could just hold on in the lobby. I'm gonna
Sure.
close the show out,
Sure.
and
Great.
I'll chat with you a couple more minutes in the lobby. Okay.
Sure. I'll hang on. Yep. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much
You're welcome.
for coming on. You have any last words
Oh,
for anybody that may be watching?
yes, I actually do. You know, and I hope I don't come off the wrong way to anybody, but the sign language that it used, I do have them on t-shirts. I have real high definition. I've had pixels added to it to make it more high definition. I have it on this, what you read underneath my name here on that NewEnglandEncounters.com. On the t-shirts, you can have it on anything that you want. A lot of the stuff on there is not mine. Okay. Etsy or Etsy or whatever you want to say.
Yep.
They put their stuff on there too. Just the t-shirts. You can have any iteration of the drawings, and you'll know that there's not the AI on those t-shirts, and that is the sign, some of the signs that it used with me.
Okay, so I'm looking at New England. What's we got? New England
Encounters.
Okay, New England Encounters.etsy.com. You guys, New England Encounters.etsy.com. I'll put that in the description of the show. Show Ernie some love. Ernie, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I have a good feeling that I have a good friendship growing with you, and I look forward to
You do.
speaking with you too
Same
later
here.
on. All right, so you
Absolutely.
just stand by one moment inside the lobby as I close out this amazing episode. You guys, there it is. I'm telling you, how amazing is that encounter? I've always dreamed to have an encounter like that, and I know a lot of people say they would like to have one as well, but then there are also other people, on the other hand, that don't. You have people out there that say, you know what, I'm not going to believe it until they bring a body in. After you hear this encounter, you guys, I'm not so sure that I want to see a body brought in. They have avoided us for hundreds, if not thousands of years. They have chosen to show themselves to people on their terms. I'm a firm believer that when you see one or someone has had an encounter with one of these creatures, it's because they chose to show themselves, regardless if it's a 2-second run across the road, or an encounter like Ernie had, where this was an up close and personal encounter. I hope everybody understands that this is a safe place for you to come share your stories, your encounters, to listen to other people's stories and encounters. And like my email flashing on the bottom of the screen is, if you guys have ever had an encounter and would love to come on the show and share your encounter, or just get that off of your chest, because a lot of people hold this in for so long. Ernie, 37 years, me, 33 years. Please email me at the Cryptid Podcast 72@gmail.com. Again, the Cryptid Podcast 72@gmail.com. And as my buddy Josh Smith always says, well, Josh, when you see this, man, I hope you feel better. Josh likes to say, stay prayed up. And as I always like to say, remember, a legend always begins with a sighting. That's the show for tonight, everybody. Have a good night. I'll see you later.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?